Today I want to talk about, what do you think is the most important piece of advice that you could offer to new or prospective landlords? Someone who's thinking about becoming a landlord, what's your advice for them?
That's a good question. So, I have a similar response to when people say, "Oh, I want to get into real estate," and I laugh because it's so vast. It's like, "Oh, I want to be a landlord. I want to own property." I'm like, okay. There's a lot to. Obviously, we're standing on it. It's all over the place, the whole world, right? So you're like, okay, what? Why? I would say people have a way to think about what their goals are is important first, I think. And I think it starts with your like lifestyle first, like what how are you going to relate to it? How does it fit into your lifestyle? What's the, are you going to manage it yourself? Not is it going to be near you, not near you? What's the, like, those are things that inform the kind of property you're going to look to get involved in. Also, I think sometimes people get, thrust upon being a landlord, like, oh, they have a family member that they inherited or they're taking care of a property. So sometimes you don't have a choice, you're handling something. So first, a lifestyle, I would say. Then, like, oh, how does this relate to your finances? But I'm not saying that you should look for a property first. What I'm saying is you should think about how this fits into your life, what you want to do. Then, how much money do you need to produce with it, right? And then, getting into a place where you're like, oh, this is how much I have to bring in. This is the kind of business I want to be in, because you could be a landlord for retail spaces. You could be a landlord for office buildings. You could be a landlord for industrial spaces. You could be a landlord for homes, apartment buildings, seniors, nursing facilities, right? Student housing. So I'm just picking a lot of stuff. So you're like, oh, okay. And then where is that going to be? That is the best advice. First is like figure out where you want to focus, what areas, and how that relates. For example, when I started, I was going to be the manager of the property, and I was going to do it. When I started, I didn't think it was going to be full time, but then when I quickly realized for me that I needed to be a full time thing for me to be successful at it. And then I also said, well, I have to buy properties that I'm going to feel comfortable going to, and and that helped shape the kind of properties I was looking for. So, for example, it was a 90-mile radius from my house. I had to feel comfortable going there, safety wise. I wanted to feel good about the providing housing, like for where I was. So there were things that that shaped the kind of properties I was looking for. And then, some experience also shaped the properties that I was looking for. But in the beginning, you could see I was more of a looser definition. I started with that. And then I did have a certain return threshold that I was working with. For example, today you could put money in the bank at say 5% or 4%, right? So you're like, oh, okay, well, if I'm going to buy a property and manage it and be the landlord, then, I need to earn more than that for whatever reason, right? I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but, so then that sets the bar, right? So then you start looking around for how to produce that, you know? So there was a criteria and standard for me when I started of a certain return that I was looking for if I was going to be active in this business. So then that informed the kind of things I was doing. So I started buying houses, and then, I learned a lot and then moved to more buildings, apartments, but it's certainly a good place to start. And then once you get into the details, it's like mapping out what the numbers would look like, really, before you buy the property. I would say, You could also practice. You could say, look, what if I bought this property and it could look at it as if you owned it? What would you do? Those are the things you're looking for, right? So, you could really start mapping it out. And there's a lot of good tools out there online, calculators, different kinds of things that you could use. And a lot of research and information today about being a landlord and being able to use technology to increase your education and capabilities.
So you mentioned that you started this part-time kind of. Do you think that most landlords it is their full-time job or is it kind of a part-time situation? What's your take on that?
I don't know. I think that a lot of people um, have a secondary property or may own another property that they call an investment property. I don't know. So if you're going to be serious in this business and do it full time, it can be full time. But I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that have, a house or an apartment or something they're involved in, whether they're a landlord.
And I got a strange question for you. Do you consider short-term rental property owners like Airbnb, VRBO, do you consider them landlords? Would you use that term?
Sure, meaning people that are doing short term rentals. Sure,
Yeah,
sure,
but it could be for 2 nights, a week, a month.
they are. There's a business there.
Definitely. Do you think that's a good like a gateway into, being what we define as a true landlord?
We can be, sure, sure, and it's a different kind of approach, but it certainly can be. I mean, the short-term rental business or the vacation rental business, it's a way of being a landlord for sure, for sure. There's people that do that, just do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people, on social media, they try to show you how to quickly profit off of, I have 3 rental properties and it is not easy. They
No, no,
make it look easy, it is not
no. A
easy.
wise man once told me, the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, but the
Mhm.
water bills are higher, right? So I appreciate that you're saying that, but the reality is, it just doesn't happen. So it takes, like anything else, time, dedication, education, to
Spreadsheets.
spreadsheets, and it's something you could work at and learn. And
Mhm.
obviously, there's no replacement for doing it. So partnering with somebody initially or learning from somebody is a good idea. Something like that. Apprenticing, taking it slow. Those are all good ideas, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So tell the listeners out there, if you have any questions about becoming a landlord,
Would love to
even
have it.
become
Right.
yeah,
Would love
we'd love to
to ask
even
them.
have you on the show. Send us a voicemail, send Albert a DM at Ask the Landlord on Instagram, and call us 646-580-3015. We'd love to hear from you, and he'd love to help you and guide you in your endeavors to becoming the next landlord.